Georgia lawyers Bob and Irreverent D talk law. Listen up for stories about how things really happen in our legal system. Who are these guys? Dwayne Singleton, Irreverent D, is a criminal. Turn page. Defense attorney. Benjamin O. Benson will personally injure. What? Oh, wait. Is a personal injury attorney in Atlanta. Now, sit back and take a listen as Bob and Irreverent D talk law.
You ever heard that malapropism?
Is that like where, make like a tree and
get out
of here?
Yeah. Stuff like that.
Make like a tree and leave?
Or like never kick a dead gift horse in the mouth when it's down. Yeah, well. What, hey, you want to cover the news?
We can.
Let's cover the news.
And now, the news.
So I am very, very interested right now because, as you know, I'm a huge connoisseur of rap music.
I did not know this about you.
I love it.
Yes?
I like it. I like the beat.
Like,
I
do you like old school rap? Like
all of
it.
it.
Yeah, okay.
All the way back, Rum DMC, Fat Boys, Beastie Boys,
Okay.
all the way up till, today. Well, today in Atlanta, everybody knows there's Young Thug.
Who is Young Thug, first
So
of all?
he is
For those uninitiated.
He is a very popular rapper
Okay.
that actually does a lot of civic work in the community and gives away a bunch of money and does free concerts all over the place.
So he's a stand-up guy.
Not according to Fulton County. So he's represented by Brian Steele, who is just an absolutely brilliant lawyer. And they've wrapped him up in this RICO case, Young Thug. His name is Jeffrey Lamar.
Not the lawyer.
No, not
Okay,
the lawyer.
all right.
Just his client. So go back. There was a case that he was represented on where there was some weed and stuff that was found.
Young Thug.
Young Thug, okay? And
Lamar.
in that
Okay.
original case, from my understanding, is there was a cell phone. And the court found that the search was bad.
Okay. In that original case.
In the original case. So they went and they said, hey, return all my stuff to me. I need it. And they said, we can't because it's part of an ongoing investigation. Okay?
Wait, does it matter how the cell phone was gotten in the first place?
Absolutely. And that's what was just decided yesterday.
Okay.
So
this is intriguing.
yeah. So what?
But ordinarily, what would happen? Like, let's pretend there's not celebrities involved. Whatever.
So
I get pulled over.
Right.
The police think that I'm a thug.
Right.
Or whatever. Right. And they arrest me. They take my cell phone, and then the charges against me are dismissed for whatever reason. Right. Then I call up the police department. I say, thank you very much.
I'd like to pick up my property.
Right, and they say, okay, show up like Elwood Blues and and sign for it.
Right.
Or Jake Blues
And you can
sign
pick
for it. Yeah.
It's normally even easier than that.
Okay.
It's normally just your cell phone would go into your property, and you'd tell somebody to come pick up your property. And they'd stop by and pick up your shoes and your jeans and your shirt and your cell phone and your watch, and they would take it. Okay.
Right.
Now, but in this situation, because he's a celebrity and he's Young Thug, they kept it. So
The sheriff's office,
right.
Fulton County's finest.
So his music has a lot of talking about gangs and stuff like that. So they've used or trying
All
to use.
obviously fictional.
Right.
Right.
His position is I am a character in a play, just like a wrestler on a stage.
Right.
I play this figure. That is not who I am.
That
Okay?
probably doesn't play well to his fans, though, right?
Probably not. No. Because,
But I mean, if you're facing jail,
but
maybe,
if you're
maybe
facing,
say, okay, I
a
got it.
RICO charge. So they've got him on this.
What? Wait, time out.
Right.
What's a RICO charge?
So it's this racketeering. So it's where you're looking at racketeering, influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. Okay. So that basically means you are involved in a criminal mastermind.
You're in the mob.
basically that's what it was created for,
Okay.
right?
Right.
Mobs, huge gangs, cartels, things like that.
Right.
So,
And it was initially created where, like, you know, the police or the prosecutors would prosecute a mob person for getting protection money from grandma, right? And then they would get a slap on the wrist, right? And so they created this type of thing where they say, well, look, this is not just something that happens in one circumstance. This is an entire operation.
Right. So they've used it so they can make this big sweep
Okay.
of people and get multiple people. Well,
More rappers?
so that's the thing is, like, from my understanding, is they're trying to use, and his attorneys are arguing against this, of course, his lyrics, right, and his creative art against him in a criminal procedure
Like an admission?
at trial. I don't know what's going to happen with that, but I know that the most recent thing that's happened is that the judge did rule that because of that cell phone being taken illegally, that it can't be used, and therefore the contents of it. Because my understanding is they're trying to use like contents on the cell phone and connections and people he's talked with.
Oh, okay.
Because
In addition to his lyrics.
right, so they've kind of went on this witch hunt for him,
The prosecutors.
the prosecutors, and so they've gone to other inmates that are in jail or other people that have pending charges, and says, "Hey, do you know anything about Jeffrey Lamar?" And they're like, "I get a better deal.
Right.
Can I get out?"
Right.
Yeah, well, I can't make
Can't
any
make
promises,
any promises. Yeah.
but we sure would like your help. He told me to kill everybody. You know that. that
He
type
said
of-
he's total gangster.
It's all,
Yeah,
and
right.
so now it goes to being this huge manufactured case against this guy, and basically they're saying like he's a huge kingpin, and his lawyer's saying like, no, he's the Rock pretending to be a big bad. You know, you smell what the Rock's cooking, but he's really not a bad guy. He's a good guy that likes to lift weights and drink tequila. You know, it's not this terrible gangster person that he portrays in his music.
How interesting. So that would be like the prosecutors in Hollywood, like finding
Right.
Brad Pitt and saying, "Oh gosh, we need to be."
Look how violent he was in this movie.
Right. Yeah.
Look how he acted here when
See how he beat Mrs. Smith.
right, you know,
Yeah.
and where he's driving this tank and he's just shooting innocent people, and you know,
Right. Yeah.
yeah. Or you write a novel, right, and your creative works, and you're saying, "Oh, we're gonna use this novel against you because you were really creepy in that thing. Like you're probably a bad dude, so therefore you must have killed your wife." So it's really interesting, like to see how all this is going to play out, like what they're going to use, what they can't use, what's going to be admitted, what's not.
So okay. So what is the scenario now? He is getting ready to go to actual trial.
I think they go to trial like in January.
And
Like
so
it's
all of
coming
this
up.
is preliminary stuff.
Yeah, so they're just dealing with motions, and you know, motion is when you have a suppressible issue. It's where you go and argue to the court that this shouldn't be allowed to be used at trial because it was illegally gotten or illegally held, or you know, we shouldn't be able to use it later on. So it's very interesting to see how this is going to play out.
So the judge is considering the motions for basically Young Thug's lawyer is saying, I'm going to make sure I got this right. They're saying, look, you cannot use any of the stuff that's on the cell phone because you didn't have a warrant for it,
Right.
to search for it, and two,
I think they did go and get
a search warrant for
a
it.
warrant at some point, but I think it was like after they already had the cell phone, after they had obtained it illegally.
So,
and then they went and got...
So it'd be like, okay, all right, you're walking down the street, you're Santa Claus.
Right.
You're walking down the street, you got this big bag, you're trailing behind you, right?
Yeah.
And the police officer comes up to you and says, and grabs the bag, looks inside, and says, I am now
full
going
of cocaine.
It's full of the stolen property.
Right.
I'm fixing to now I'm going to get an arrest warrant, or I'm going to get a search warrant to search your bag.
Right.
Right.
Based on this information I illegally obtained.
Yeah. Well, so if it was that cut and dry,
Right.
Santa Claus would get off.
Right.
Because you can't look inside something and then get a search warrant asking permission to look inside the thing.
Yeah, but what I find more interesting is the fact that, you know, this villainizing of like pop culture and saying like, hey,
Yeah.
You must be doing X because you sing about it. Well, and then you trying to use that against somebody to make a RICO case is very, very interesting.
Well, who are they saying that he's in league with in the corrupt organization? Like other?
They're saying it's a gang. They're saying like he's the head.
So not like a organization of rappers who all are talking about. It's like it's some kind of local gang.
But you're seeing, because we had another case that came up, and I think it was out of Clayton County or either Henry County, where they came in and arrested the whole record label. They went and got everybody. They're like, oh, they're all involved.
But that wasn't Marcus.
And no, they're all involved in like gang activity and stuff. So it's interesting to me because we're villainizing people for associating with other people,
right?
But then we're picking and choosing what we consider a gang. I mean,
right? How do you define that?
I mean, if you want to go back and say gangs, like anybody with a cowboy hat calls himself a cowboy, that goes back to the cattle rustlers, right?
Yeah.
They were a gang, or
I'm your Huckleberry, right?
Or motorcycle gangs, or other things like that, or
Cool in the Gang,
right? Cool in the Gang,
right?
Who knows? So it's just it's
a slippery slope.
Well, and it carries much more severe punishments, and I get it, and it also scares people, right? Oh, he wasn't just a bad guy; he's a bad guy in a gang.
In a gang,
right? So then you get the gang
that being
expert
said,
to come in there, and
the gangs are a problem.
I'm not saying they're not here. I'm not saying they're not a problem. I'm just saying that they tack it on sometimes just because it makes it easier to get a conviction.
Mm-hmm. But I mean, yeah, I get it.
Do I get to talk about your, other things that are outside of this case about you being a bad person if it's not relevant to the actual crime that was committed?
Like if you let your son die in the back of your car, do I get to talk about all the pedophile-like things that you did?
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, the court says you can talk about some of them, right? You can talk about when you were texting to your girlfriend.
Right. We're talking about the Harris,
right?
The Harris case.
Right.
That just for context, sorry, there's like this. We keep forgetting like all of the off camera conversations that we've had. Like, oh yeah, about that.
And then people aren't sitting around reading this stuff on the side. You need to study up before our program.
Stay with us.
Stay with us.
Right.
We should just keep the cameras rolling.
Really, like
we should have like another roll that people can go to for extra
like
content.
B-side
just
stuff.
Watch us randomly talk about
So that case was was all in the news 4 or 5 years ago. This man has a son. He leaves his son in the back of his car all day,
right? And
then at the end of the day, he discovers his son and he's dead.
Right.
And he left his son asphyxiated in the car, and he went to trial. He got convicted, and then this year, this is why it's relevant, is that the Georgia Supreme Court overturned his conviction because
of improperly entered evidence.
Piling on.
Right.
Right. So in that case, there was some. Well, let's just say he was sending text messages to underage girls,
right?
While his son was baking in the car. It was terrible.
So right. That let's kind of break it down though.
Right.
I mean,
that's obviously relevant.
And I think the prosecutor messed up by piling on too much. I think that's enough, right? He's sending this message to them, but then they went on to other text messages and other conversations.
And more and more and more
that
and more
were way
and more.
outside the scope of the crime, or whether or not he committed the crime, or whether or not that goes to proof. So the problem is we can't just go and say you're a bad person, so you need to be convicted of something. Right? So we can't.
Was it Stalin? You show me the man, I'll find the crime?
Right. And even like if they've committed other crimes, sometimes those crimes, if they're not related in some way or similar in some way, they can't be brought up as long as your client chooses to remain silent, right? They can't be used against them at trial. So when you start bringing in all this other factors like, oh, he cheated on his wife and he did this. Now, if it goes towards the theory of your case, like maybe he did this on purpose.
Wait,
right?
That was their theory, right?
Yeah, but I think they got way outside and the court said you just went too far.
That's in fact exactly what they said.
So if the court applies that to the Young Thug case, right, then they should keep out a lot of the rap lyrics and stuff like that if it's not directly related to the RICO action.
I just don't understand how the prosecutors think that they can even get that in.
I don't know exactly. I would assume that it's because they're saying that it shows that
indication of his mindset.
Yeah, he's involved in a gang and gang activity, and this is how they do it, and so forth.
Like he wouldn't know what happens in a gang to be able to write about it unless he was actually in a gang.
I'm very interested to see how this all plays out. But he is represented by Brian Steele, who is an excellent criminal defense attorney, and Brian will do everything in his power to make sure he gets a proper defense.
Well, you know what Young Thug needs is he needs to patronize our other sponsor, justanexcuse.net.
Does he now?
Maybe he could get out of trial.
I don't know if they'll relieve you from trial duty.
No,
from showing up for trial.
Okay, I'm going to set this down here. What could get you out of trial? You have a stroke?
Well, not obviously in in Clayton County, because an attorney recently, Matt Tucker, who I like and I think he's a good lawyer, had a stroke and couldn't make it to court, and the judge, I guess, didn't believe him or believe his staff, and still held him in contempt on
for not coming to trial.
Right, and this was a televised case, so like they put it all out there for the whole world to see, and even started making comments about the attorney and stuff. Just
the judge did.
Yeah, I think she went a little too far. Yeah, but I mean, just people think, well, you just work for yourself and you're an attorney and you get to go and do whatever you want to. No, you go where the judge tells you to go and when you're supposed to be there. But
yeah, we've got this kind of keyed up for another episode to talk about. It's kind of when you're a lawyer, if you're in, you're in. Right. Like you don't get to just like bail out and say, oh, sorry, guys, I got a
little tummy ache.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not feeling it today.
We got away with a little. I mean, during COVID, they were a little bit more lenient because of this, thing. But prior to that, unless you were like in the hospital, you were expected to be in court on time. No
matter
excuses. What. Yeah. The story that everybody always tells is the lawyer that was on the way to a trial, and he runs his Mercedes off into the stream or whatever, and he leaves it there and hitchhikes to court
just so he could
so he can make it there on time.
Yeah.
That's what we're expected to do.
That's
every time. Right.
In today's day and age, you really ought to be able to get there anyways. Like Uber,
Lyft, something.
Yeah.
But if you have a stroke. And you're in
that's another thing.
Hospital. But anyway, if you just need a regular excuse to get out of something, what do you do?
So what you do, for a modest fee, you can get your very own excuse. These can vary from something as simple as a clever argument that you can use with your loved one or not so loved one, to a verified calendar appointment that gets sent to you and put on your Outlook calendar with legitimate-looking business.
Can't do it. I got to be somewhere else.
I've got this appointment. You see it, honey. You see it. It's on my calendar, right? I can't make this stuff up, but if you really need
justanexcuse.net can make it up for you.
They can make it up for you.
Justanexcuse.net.
So
should these guys really be our sponsor?
I mean, I have to say,
want to put out there.
I mean, I have to say that it sounds to me like, I didn't read the end part of this read, but they talk about getting a subpoena to get out of a grand jury summons. Like that sounds like maybe a little bit, beyond the pale.
I'm not going to commit a felony.
Yeah, right. So we definitely don't, but we don't suggest using them to get out of a legal obligation. Anyways, all right. So last segment, we need to talk about.
Can I sue for that?
We promised that we were going to talk about, can I sue my landlord for the unreturned deposit? Okay, so
I get these calls all the time.
Do you really?
About landlord-tenant stuff.
Oh, in particular about landlord-tenant.
Yes.
Yeah. So what happens is, as everybody probably knows, if you go and rent an apartment, or sign a lease on an apartment, you have like a $500 or $1,000 deposit, more if you have a pet, right?
First and last month's rent.
That's right. First and last month's rent, and then once you are done with that lease and you're going to vacate, you're supposed to get your security deposit back. I wonder if we did a survey. In fact, let's ask that question.
Did you get your
security?
back?
How many of you have actually ever got all of your security deposit back? Because I, frankly,
Probably not many.
I cannot think of a person that I've ever talked to who's ever got all of their security
In
deposit
college, I cleaned my apartment spotless. We went back and we touched up the paint,
back. Right.
and they still didn't return our whole deposit.
How much of it did they keep?
Oh, I don't think it was much back then. This is 20 years ago. I think
Right.
it was like
$200,
$300 or something.
yeah.
Yeah, but it was like half of it. It was like $150 or something.
Hey, that's drinking.
It was a lot
that's
to me
drinking
back
money.
then, right?
Right. Yeah. So can you sue them?
Absolutely.
How do you do this?
So, I mean, you can sue for the failure to return the deposit. I think they get, I'm not familiar, I haven't looked at the statute recently. Don't they get double damages or something for failure to return?
That might be right. I didn't realize that there was an actual statute on it. I was just going to say, well, it's a breach of your contract,
Right?
Right. You have a contract, and these say that if you're going to give them a security deposit and they don't give it back, they breach their contract. Obviously, if there's some kind of
What I run into on the opposite end is they moved out of their apartment.
right.
They didn't get their security deposit back.
Yep.
And then the landlord sues them
Sues the former tenant
in magistrate court for
Right.
excessive damage and tear on the property.
more than what the deposit would have covered.
We have a couple of landlords locally that do it all the time. And you see a lawsuit that there's someone for like $5, $6, $7 grand. You
In
know,
like Judge Judy court,
in magistrate court.
right?
You
Small
know,
claims court, we call it.
And so you probably didn't take pictures before you left and moved out.
Right.
You didn't
Right, like
keep
I'm not
up
going
with
to do
everything.
CSI on it.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You know, and so you just moved your stuff out, and they're like, and it's normal wear and tear that happens. That's part of what you're paying for when you're renting the house. The landlord's actually supposed to come in and paint and keep stuff up and take care of stuff, but
Right. Which they don't do. Right.
And a lot of times they're just trying to take advantage of the fact that people aren't going to answer the lawsuit.
That's right.
They're not going to file within the time frame. They're going to get a default judgment against them, and then they'll go track them down and garnish their wages at their
Zaxby's job or whatever.
job somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I do see that a lot of landlords take advantage of not returning security deposits.
Yeah. So there's two parts of that. Can I sue? And then I would just like to add on to that, like, how can you sue? Right. In that circumstance, like, you don't need a lawyer. In fact, you probably not find a lawyer who will take that case
Because it's not big enough.
Right, like, we can't make money. Love you, but we can't make money doing that. It's like a losing proposition. So, I'm glad to tell you how to do it. What you do is get the form that's called a statement of claim form from the local magistrate court.
Right.
You find out who it is that's a defendant. If it's a corporation, you need to make sure that you look on the Secretary of State's website, the Georgia.
Make sure you sue the right corporation.
Make sure you sue the right corporation, and then you file the lawsuit, and you have the sheriff's office serve the lawsuit. The magistrate court will actually arrange for that. I don't think it costs more than $100, $150 to file a claim in magistrate court, in small claims court. And then once the defendant has been served, they have 30 days to file an answer.
Right.
And then you'll pretty much be on a hearing calendar pretty quickly.
Well, I'm pretty lucky where we're at because there's actually a young attorney who's doing a pretty good job, brand new, opened his new office, and he'll take these little cases.
I could tell you, if I could afford it, I would love to take magistrate court cases because there's so much interesting stuff that happens.
Well, he loves it because he's getting trial experience.
Yeah,
He's
that's
getting to go in the courtroom. He's getting the only way to learn how to try a case is to try a case. You can watch as many videos and read as many books.
Yeah.
Until you've tried 50 or 60 cases, you don't really know what you're doing.
That's right. Yeah. I actually love going to small claims court because it's kind of the soft underbelly of like where actual life happens.
Right.
Right. Like, we see these glamorous, things that are going on.
And you say Judge Judy because it's very similar.
Oh yeah.
It's just the judge, and they'll go, whoa. Let me ask this question.
Stop talking.
No.
Stop talking. My favorite, particularly Judge Judy, her thing is stop peeing on my leg and tell me that it's raining. Right.
The problem is when people think that they're in Judge Judy court when they're in superior court.
You're in big boy court. That's
in
a different
front of a
thing.
superior court judge, and they think they're going to interrupt and speak up and be loud, and they find themselves with 90 days of contempt, and they don't know why. They're
Right.
going to jail.
There's a story about that I'd love to tell next time. But I had to defend one of my very dear friends in a magistrate court case that one of his customers, he lays floor, right? And I told him, I was like, AJ, look, I love you, man, but like, I'm a personal injury lawyer. Like, this is a contract issue. Like, I don't know, but I knew, like, no other lawyer. I mean, he's not gonna. He can't afford
Right.
to hire a lawyer and pay him $200, $300, $400 an hour to go down there.
Can't spend $4,000 to defend against a $4,000 case.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And so I ended up doing it because I love him and I've been friends with him for a long time. He's a close friend of the family. So we go there, and the plaintiff, the kid, who is basically trying to say that that my client's flooring caused there to be beetles, wood-eating beetles in his house, right? And so it ends up that we win in the defense because basically they can't prove their case.
Right.
If you are gonna handle this, you got to be able to prove your case, right? And you can prove your case if you know the facts, right? I gave the deposit. I cleaned these things. I know that it was cleaned, right? And then he didn't return the deposit. In that circumstance, I have all of the facts.
Right.
I know all of the things. The judge may not believe me, but I know all the things. In that case, with my friend, the plaintiff, they didn't have that causation, right? They didn't have somebody. They didn't have the Orkin guy there to testify.
Right.
Okay, this
is why the Beatles were here.
This is why the Beatles were here, right? And the judge wouldn't let them testify to it because they're not qualified to testify to it. And I'm standing there saying, this is the worst place to be, by the way, trying a case against a pro se, like another party who doesn't have a lawyer. Because one, if I win, I should have won.
Right.
And two, if I lose, I've really lost.
Well, and I also see that the magistrate judges will allow a little bit more.
Yeah.
And they give
you never know what's going to happen.
They give a lot of deference to people that come in pro se,
right,
because they're used to seeing that day in and day out,
And frankly, it should be that way.
Right.
Because the alternative is you have to hire a lawyer to do it in big boy court.
And then you're keeping people out of the justice system.
You're keeping people out of the justice system. This kid who was prosecuting this claim, or that was bringing this claim, did not get that. He did not get that the magistrate court is there as a courtesy to you.
Right.
Because the default is you got to hire a lawyer and you got to file the forms and you got to do it, and it's expensive.
By the book, exactly, or it's going to be kicked out. Right.
That's right. And he was mean and nasty and disrespectful to the court, and it was everything I could to stand there and not look at him and just berate the kid for being so disrespectful. It really killed me. I was so angry.
Well, that's the beauty though of personal injury work and contingency fee cases.
Yeah.
Is that because you're doing it on a contingency fee and you're fronting that cost, you're giving people access to the legal system that normally wouldn't have access.
That's right.
To get there. I get so frustrated on the criminal defense side because, you've got the public defenders and some of them do a very, very good job and some of them don't. It's just like anything else, right? But, I'm like, if I could just sue them after we win and get a big judgment.
Yeah.
I hear people all the time when I post about winning a case, they're like, well, I hope she gets her
attorney fees
back.
from the prosecutor's office.
That's not how it works in Georgia,
No. Does it work other ways in other places?
No, but there are other states that do allow for remedies to file lawsuits if you were wrongfully prosecuted. In Georgia,
if there's some reason that you could have been prosecuted.
Right. Yeah.
All right, well, that's it for our episode. Thank you guys for joining us.
Thanks, guys.
And have a happy holiday. I understand this. Yeah, I think this is going to be, or other holiday episode, right? Depending on what you celebrate. But y'all have a good holiday and a happy New Year. We'll see you in a couple weeks.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks for listening. Tune in next time when Bob and Irreverent D talk law.